time for Hot Stuff, presented by DiGiorno.
How did you come up with the title?
I think Keith is going to explain how we came up with the title. What's this all about, Keith?
So focusing on pitchers with the best stuff. A couple weeks ago, we did rotations or teams in particular with the best stuff. Today, we got a couple head-to-head matchups, starters and relievers for 3 different pitch types. We'll run through them, starting with starters and sticking with the Mariners on this full screen. The 2 guys we picked out here, Dylan Cease, the Cy Young runner-up, as the starter, and Munoz on the right, who we just spoke about as the reliever. Now, Cease was the runner-up in Cy Young, as I mentioned. 3rd best strikeout pitch in baseball. You see on the bottom there, only Carlos Rodon and Garrett Cole's fastball had more strikeouts than Cease's 131 last year. And the other thing with these guys, obviously, with the slider, they both throw a billion miles an hour. Munoz up to 103 last year, Cease flirting with triple digits. So combining that velocity with these kind of sliders, obviously a pretty good combination.
This is a high-end all-star pitcher.
Yes, it is, H. Now, curveballs next, a couple more high-end all-star type of pitchers. Framber Valdez and Yohan Duran, who we talked about.
The Twins have a new explosive weapon.
Well, he was there last year, but yes, he is an explosive weapon, and he is relatively new on the scene. Now, Valdez, you got to see this pitch on full display in the postseason. 2 for 31 against his curveball in the playoffs with 19 strikeouts, guys. Keeps the ball on the ground, also gets swings and misses with that pitch. He's obviously turned into one of the better pitchers in the game and going to replace Justin Verlander at the top of that rotation. And we'll end here on splitters. Now, you think of splitters, you probably think of Shohei Ohtani. We could certainly have had him on this board, but we went with Gausman because the usage rate was about 3 times what Ohtani's was with the splitter last year. Obviously, actually the lowest usage rate of the splitter in Ohtani's career. But, Maddie, you just talked about walk rate with George Kirby. How about Gausman with this splitter? Overall, in the 97th percentile in chase rate, so he gets guys to expand the zone, but he also doesn't walk anybody. In the top 5% in walk rate as well, so able to stretch the zone, but also not walk guys. And then I know, Matt, you mentioned that Felix Bautista might have been the most impressive young pitcher that you were able to see in person last year. So who stands out among that group? Or you can go off the board. Who has the best stuff in your mind in the game?
H, you want to go first? I mean, I love Bautista.
Go ahead.
Well, eyeball test on that guy, you're like, oh my goodness, who's ever going to have any success against this guy? He could be there for 30 years. I would also add Ohtani's slider into that conversation, Keith, because yes, the split is his signature pitch, but he threw way more sliders than he ever had before after the All-Star break last year, and I think it's interesting what the pitch clock might do to his calculus because he's slow on the mound. And it's not that his delivery is slow as much as his process is slow. He steps off a lot, and with a pitch clock this year, maybe he's one of those guys that changes what he does.
That will be interesting to watch him do that.
Yeah.
Framber Valdez is a stud. I think he gets overlooked when we're talking about all the great pitchers in baseball. He is right there. And I think we watched him with our own eyes in the World Series last year go to another level. And what I like about him, and looking at the boards you just threw up there, Keith, how do you use it? As an out pitch. You don't show it early. You're able to hold it back and use it when you need to get guys to chase. And I think Framber's really figuring out what all he can do with that breaking ball.
That's a fun conversation. There are a few guys we could talk about maybe in that regard
stuff.
moving forward. Hot stuff.